doing in here?
Let me get a cup of coffee.
Well, get it and get out. I don't want you lollygagging around my kitchen.
Ever wonder what happens when a TV show creates a character that is a total disaster? We're about to show you. These are the forgotten weirdos of the sitcom world. Stick around to find out which hit comedy introduced a tiny green alien that almost wrecked the whole show. 1. Chuck Cunningham on Happy Days.
Who wants to blow our whole vacation fund on a hole in the ground?
Well, what's Carlsbad Caverns but a hole in the ground?
Let's fire up the jukebox and head back to the 1950s with Happy Days. Everyone remembers the Cunningham family. You had the wise dad, Howard, the sweet mom, Marion, the cool son, Richie, and the spunky daughter, Joni. They were the perfect American family. Except, here is the thing, there was another Cunningham son. His name was Chuck. In the very first season of the show, the Cunninghams had an older son, a college-aged kid who played basketball. His name was Chuck. He would walk through a scene, maybe bounce his basketball, say a single line, and then walk away. He was barely a character at all. He had no real personality and added absolutely nothing to the story. He was just kind of there, a piece of furniture that sometimes spoke. The writers clearly had no idea what to do with him. So what did they do? They just made him disappear. After the first season, Chuck walked upstairs to his room, and story-wise, he never came back down. The family never mentioned him again. It was like he never existed. Later in the show, Howard Cunningham would even say he only had 2 children, Richie and Joni. The complete and total erasure of Chuck became so famous among TV fans that it created its own term known as Chuck Cunningham syndrome for any character who vanishes from a show without a trace. Disappearing a character is a bold move. But what about adding a new one out of thin air, only to have him vanish just as quickly? Our next character is the poster child for a weird addition gone wrong. 2. 7 on Married. With children.
That's a little woman's. I'll just go and put it up in the attic with her iron.
Let's head over to the Bundy household, home of the famously miserable family from Married with Children. You had Al, the shoe salesman who hated his life, Peg, his lazy wife, Kelly, the ditzy daughter, and Bud, the nerdy son. For 6 seasons, this formula worked perfectly. The show was a huge hit because of this core group of 4. But then, in season 7, the writers made a truly bizarre decision. Out of nowhere, a distant relative of Peg's shows up at the door and dumps their little kid on the Bundys before leaving forever. The kid's name was 7. Yes, his name was the number 7. He was a cute little blonde kid, and the idea was that he would add a new, fresh dynamic to the show. The problem was, nobody wanted it. Fans hated the character immediately. He felt completely out of place. The whole joke of the show was about this trashy, miserable family. Adding a cute kid just felt wrong, and honestly, a little desperate. The backlash was so strong and so fast that the producers had to do something. 7 was in a handful of episodes, and then, one day, he just wasn't there anymore. He was on the milk carton in a background shot of a later episode as a joke, but the family never spoke of him again. He was here 1 week and gone the next, another victim of a weird character experiment that blew up in the writers' faces. Adding a random kid is one thing, but our next show went even further, adding a tiny floating green alien from outer space that only 2 of the characters could see or hear. 3. The Great Gazoo on the Flintstones.
Okay, Brother Flintstone, we need a strike to win. Can you do it?
Is the Earth flat?
Let's take a trip way back to the Stone Age town of Bedrock, home of the Flintstones. This classic cartoon was basically a sitcom about a prehistoric family. You had Fred Flintstone, his wife Wilma, and their neighbors, Barney and Betty Rubble. The show was a simple, funny look at everyday life, just with dinosaurs and rock puns. For 5 seasons, it was one of the most popular shows on television. Then, in its 6th and final season, the show introduced a character so weird it still makes people scratch their heads today. His name was the Great Gazoo. He was a tiny green floating alien from a futuristic planet called Zetox. He was banished to Earth as punishment and ended up stuck with Fred and Barney, who he called the Dum-Dums. He had a big green helmet and could perform all sorts of powerful magic, like stopping time or making objects appear out of thin air. The weirdest part of all was that only Fred, Barney, and the children Pebbles and Bam Bam could see him. To everyone else, he was completely invisible. Gazoo was added to the show in a last-ditch effort to boost falling ratings. The problem was he completely changed the show's entire feel. It went from a simple family comedy to a weird sci-fi show. Fans did not like the change. Gazoo was seen as annoying, and his high-tech powers felt completely out of place in the Stone Age. He is often blamed for the show's final decline and is remembered today as one of the strangest additions to a classic TV show ever. Adding an alien is a big swing, but what about adding a human character who feels just as out of place? Our next character was so poorly received, he became a symbol for when a show is officially out of ideas. 4. Coco on the Golden Girls picture.
Ready? To run with the bulls in Pamplona? Dorothy, you know this is my funeral dress. I don't believe in wearing black, unless I'm a little bloated.
It, Miami, 1985. You're watching the very first episode of a new show called The Golden Girls. You meet Dorothy, the smart, sarcastic one. You meet Rose, the sweet, simple one from Minnesota. And you meet Blanche, the Southern belle who loves men. The three of them are living together in Blanche's house. But wait, there was a fourth person there, and it was not Sophia. In the pilot episode, the 4 roommates were Dorothy, Rose, Blanche, and a man named Coco. Coco was a cook and a housekeeper for the girls. He was a funny, flamboyant character who would pop in, make a few sassy jokes, and then go back to the kitchen. He was a friend to the girls and was meant to be a supporting character who could listen to their problems and offer advice. The actor, Charles Levin, did a great job with the part. But here is what happened. During that first episode, the character of Sophia, Dorothy's cranky old mother played by Estelle Getty, was supposed to just be a minor guest character. But she was so hilarious and got such a huge reaction from the studio audience that the producers knew they had a star on their hands. They immediately decided to make Sophia a main character and the 4th roommate. With Sophia in the house, they realized they did not need another character to deliver funny one-liners. So, poor Coco was completely written out of the show after the first episode. He was never seen or mentioned again. It is crazy to think of that show having a different 4th member. But sometimes a character's weirdness comes not from being written out, but from being written in and then totally forgotten, like our next forgotten family member. 5. Tina Pinciotti on That 70s Show.
Creepy friends are using Dad's stereo.
You guys, no one's allowed in the house.
Hello, pretty lady.
Hi.
Let's head down to the basement in Point Place, Wisconsin, and hang out with the cast of That 70s Show. The show was all about Eric Foreman and his group of friends. A huge part of the show was the relationship between Eric and his next-door neighbor and girlfriend, Donna Pinciotti. We got to know Donna's family really well. We all remember her goofy dad, Bob, and her high-strung mom, Midge. They were key parts of the show. But in the first season, there was another Pinciotti. Donna had a younger sister. Her name was Tina, and she was played by actress Amanda Fuller, who funnily enough would later go on to play a different character on Last Man Standing. Tina was a 14-year-old who was shown to have a crush on Eric's friend, Fez. She appeared in one episode, Eric's Burger Job, where she attends a party at the foreman's house. She has a few lines, interacts with the main cast, and is clearly set up to be a recurring character. And then, poof, she was gone. Forever. She was never ever mentioned again for the entire rest of the show's 8-season run. It was like Donna suddenly became an only child. The writers just decided the character did not work, and instead of explaining where she went, they just pretended she was never there in the first place. It is one of the most glaring examples of a character being introduced and then completely abandoned, leaving eagle-eyed fans to wonder, whatever happened to Tina? A forgotten sister is strange, but at least she was a normal person. The next character on our list had one of the weirdest names in TV history and also mysteriously disappeared from his show. 6. Boner Stabone on Growing Pains.
Read it?
These postcards are all the same. It's always a picture of the world's biggest something. A trout the size of an RV, a 4-story corn dog.
The 1980s were full of wholesome family sitcoms, and Growing Pains was one of the biggest. It centered on the Seaver family, with a special focus on the charming, troublemaking oldest son, Mike, played by teen heartthrob Kirk Cameron. Like any cool TV teenager, Mike Seaver had a goofy best friend. And this best friend had a name that is impossible to forget. His name was Richard Milhouse Boner Stabone. Yes, you heard that right. His nickname was Boner. He was a tall, dim-witted, but very loyal friend to Mike. He was known for his goofy laugh and for always getting roped into Mike's crazy schemes. He was a classic sidekick character and was a pretty regular presence in the first few seasons of the show. The character was played by Andrew Koenig, who gave him a very sweet and lovable personality, despite his ridiculous name. Then, after a few seasons, Boner's role started to get smaller. Eventually, he was written out of the show with the explanation that he had joined the Marine Corps. He had a final emotional goodbye episode with Mike and was never seen on the show again. While the character was given a proper send-off, he has since become a mostly forgotten piece of 80s TV trivia. Most people remember Mike Seaver, but his bizarrely named best friend has faded into obscurity. Writing out a sidekick is common practice, but what about writing out a main character and replacing him with someone so bland and unlikable that fans still complain about it today? 7. Randy Pearson on That 70s Show.
What did you say? I said that you're both morons. What are you gonna do? You gonna beat me up? You weigh 400 pounds together? It doesn't matter. The fact is that the tap is broken and it's your fault. Morons!
Let's go back to the basement in Wisconsin for another weird character from That 70s Show. The show was a massive hit for 7 seasons, mostly because of the amazing chemistry between the 6 main friends. But at the end of the 7th season, 2 of the biggest stars, Topher Grace, who played Eric, and Ashton Kutcher, who played Kelso, decided to leave the show. This left the creators with a huge problem. How do you continue the show without 2 of your main characters? Their solution was to introduce a new character named Randy Pearson, played by actor Josh Myers. Randy was meant to be a combination of Eric and Kelso. He was good-looking and charming like Kelso, but also witty and sarcastic like Eric. He worked at the record store with Hyde, and he ended up dating Donna. The problem was, he felt like a cheap replacement. He had no real flaws, and his personality felt incredibly forced. He just did not fit in with the rest of the gang. Fans of the show rejected Randy almost immediately. He was seen as a boring, poorly written character who was trying too hard to fill the shoes of 2 beloved characters. The final season of the show is often considered the weakest, and many people blame the addition of Randy. He was a classic example of a show trying to replace a key ingredient and failing miserably. As soon as the show ended, the character of Randy was instantly forgotten, remembered only as the guy who tried and failed to replace Eric Foreman. Trying to replace a main character is risky, but sometimes shows add a new character not to replace anyone, but to save the show from cancellation, a move that almost never works, as our next entry proves. 8. Cousin Oliver on The Brady Bunch.
No, I'm real good at ketchup. You gotta hit the bottom real hard, like this.
The Brady Bunch is the definition of a classic family sitcom. For 5 seasons, we watched the 6 Brady kids, Greg, Marcia, Peter, Jan, Bobby, and Cindy grow up, sing songs, and learn valuable life lessons. But by the 5th season, the original Brady kids were getting older. They were teenagers now, and some of the show's cute, kid-friendly charm was starting to fade. The ratings were slipping, and the network was getting worried. So the producers decided to use a classic and often disastrous TV trick. They brought in a new, younger, cuter kid. His name was Cousin Oliver. He was Carol Brady's nephew, a little kid with big glasses and blonde hair who had to come live with the Bradys. He was played by actor Robbie Rist. The idea was that Oliver would bring back that cute kid energy the show had lost. He was clumsy, jinxed, and always getting into trouble. It did not work at all. Audiences saw right through it. The addition of Oliver felt like a desperate gimmick. The character was seen as annoying and unnecessary, and he took screen time away from the original kids that everyone loved. The show was canceled at the end of that season. Cousin Oliver only appeared in the final 6 episodes of the series, but he left a huge mark on television history. His name became a term, Cousin Oliver Syndrome, used to describe any time a show adds a cute new kid to try and save itself from cancellation. It almost never works. Adding a new kid is weird. Adding a robot kid is even weirder, which is exactly what our next sitcom did. 9. Urkelbot on Family Matters.
I detected a pattern and deduced the most logical spot to be hit next.
And here we are at Pete's Shop and Save.
Right on, Rooney.
Okay, let's be honest. The entire show Family Matters got pretty weird in its later seasons. What started as a down-to-earth family sitcom about the Winslow family slowly turned into the Steve Urkel Show. The nerdy next-door neighbor became the star, and the storylines got more and more ridiculous. We saw Urkel shrink himself, travel through time, and transform into a handsome ladies' man named Stefan Urquell. But the show reached its peak of weirdness when Steve Urkel built a robot version of himself. Yes, in a Season 7 episode, Steve decided the world needed more of him, so he invented the Urkelbot. It was an exact robot replica of himself, programmed with all his memories and his personality. At first, the robot was helpful, but as you might expect, things went horribly wrong. The Urkelbot developed a mind of its own, became evil, and tried to take over Steve's life and win the heart of his beloved Laura Winslow. This was not a one-time thing. The Urkelbot appeared in multiple episodes. There was even a storyline where the evil robot teamed up with a ventriloquist dummy to cause chaos. It was a bizarre turn for a show that started out as a simple family comedy. The Urkelbot represents the moment Family Matters went completely off the rails into full-blown science fiction. While people definitely remember Steve Urkel, his robotic evil twin has become a forgotten but truly weird piece of 90s television. An evil robot is one kind of weird. But what about a character who was weird because you could barely understand what he was saying? The next character on our list communicated in a very, very strange way. 10. The Schleprock on the Flintstones.
Anything else, Mr. Flintstone?
No, Miss Stone, take the rest of the day off.
Let's head back to Bedrock for another bizarre character from the world of the Flintstones. While Gazoo was a late addition, this character popped up in the show's spin-off series, The Pebbles and Bam Bam Show. The character's name was the Schleprock, and he was, without a doubt, the unluckiest person in the entire Stone Age. The Schleprock was a friend of the teenage Pebbles and Bam Bam. He was a short, green-skinned guy who was a walking disaster. A tiny personal rain cloud followed him everywhere he went, literally. He spoke in a mumbled, downbeat voice, and his catchphrase was a sad, "Woe is me, woe is me." Anytime the Schleprock showed up, things were guaranteed to go wrong. If there was a vase, he would knock it over. If there was a plan, he would mess it up. His very presence caused bad luck for everyone around him. The whole joke was that he was a jinx. While it was a funny idea for a few episodes, the character never really evolved beyond that one single joke. He was a one-note character who existed only to bring misfortune. As a result, he is a deeply forgotten part of the Flintstones universe. Most people remember the main characters and maybe even Gazoo, but the sad, unlucky Schleprock has been almost completely lost to time. A character followed by a rain cloud is strange, but what about a character who was a mime and owned a bowling alley? Our next forgotten character was a master of silence. 11. Mr. Bobak on Perfect Strangers.
Except I can take some small comfort from having just figured out what is going on here.
You know what's going on here?
Well, of course, don't be ridiculous.
Let's jump to 1980s Chicago and the world of Perfect Strangers. The show was about the hilarious relationship between a serious American man, Larry Appleton, and his long-lost goofy cousin from a fictional Mediterranean island, Balky Bartokomous. A huge part of the show's comedy came from Balky's strange foreign customs and misunderstandings of American life. The show was full of funny supporting characters, but none were as strange as their first landlord. His name was Mr. Bobak. He was the landlord of the apartment building where Larry and Balky first lived. And here is the weird part, he did not speak English. In fact, he did not seem to speak any recognizable language at all. Mr. Bobak communicated entirely through a series of bizarre clicks, whistles, and strange mouth sounds. It was like listening to a dolphin try to have a conversation. Amazingly, Balky, being from a strange land himself, could understand him perfectly and would translate for Larry. This led to some truly surreal and hilarious scenes where Balky would have a full conversation with the clicking and whistling landlord. The character was so utterly random and strange that it fit perfectly with the show's quirky sense of humor. Mr. Bobak only appeared in a few episodes in the first season before the cousins moved to a new apartment with a new landlord, so he remains a very deep cut, a truly weird and forgotten character from a classic 80s sitcom. A landlord who clicks and whistles is one thing, but what about a character who never spoke a single word? Our next weird character was a mime who was a regular on a hit show. 12. Judy Winslow on Family Matters.
This is junk mail. Hey, you're new in this profession. You've got to start at the bottom. I was born at the bottom.
Let's head to Chicago in the late 1980s and visit the Winslow family from Family Matters, a sitcom about a middle-class black family that became a cultural staple. You had Carl, the grumpy but lovable cop dad, Harriet, the sharp-witted mom, and their kids, Eddie, Laura, and the youngest, Judy. The show started as a grounded family comedy, but there's one character whose strange fate makes her a perfect fit for this list. Judy Winslow. Judy, played by Jamie Foxworth, was the youngest Winslow daughter in the first 3 seasons, 1989 to 1992. She was a typical sitcom kid, cute, a bit sassy, and often involved in minor family antics, like sneaking snacks or bickering with her siblings. But as the show progressed, it became the Steve Urkel Show, with the nerdy neighbor dominating the spotlight. By season 4, Judy vanished without a trace. One day, she went upstairs to her room, and the show never mentioned her again. The Winslows acted as if they only had 2 kids, Eddie and Laura. The weirdness lies in her complete erasure from a family sitcom. No explanation, no boarding school, no running away. Nothing. Fans later learned that Jamie Foxworth was let go due to budget cuts and the show's shift toward Urkel-centric plots. Her disappearance is so infamous that it's another example of Chuck Cunningham syndrome. Judy's abrupt exit from a tight-knit family show is bizarre, and while Family Matters remains iconic, the forgotten youngest Winslow is a strange footnote in TV history. A silent mime is weird, but what about a character who was so strange he was not even a full person? Our next character was literally just a pair of legs. 13. Dorfman on Welcome Back, Cotter.
Hear that, Steve?
Cavelli say you put the sweat in sweat hogs.
I heard him, Murray.
Let's head to James Buchanan High School and sit in on a class for a group of underachieving but lovable students known as the Sweat Hogs. The show Welcome Back, Kotter was a massive hit in the 70s, making a star out of John Travolta, who played Vinnie Barbarino. The other Sweat Hogs included Arnold Horshack and Freddie Boom Boom Washington. But there was another Sweat Hog who was part of the group, but we never ever saw his face. His name was Dorfman. All we ever saw of Dorfman was his pair of legs, clad in jeans and sneakers, sticking out from a school locker. That was it. That was the whole character. He was apparently so shy and scared of everything that he spent his entire high school career hiding in a locker. The other Sweat Hogs would talk to him like it was completely normal. They would walk up to the locker, have a conversation with the disembodied pair of legs, and then walk away. We never heard Dorfman speak, and we certainly never saw who he was. He was a running gag that was so bizarre and so random that it's hard to believe it was real. Because he was not a real character with a face or a voice, Dorfman is probably the most deeply forgotten of all the Sweat Hogs, a true sitcom weirdo who was nothing more than a pair of feet. A pair of legs in a locker is peak weirdness. But our next character was strange because of the constant verbal abuse she dished out and the thick accent she used while doing it. 14. Gretchen Krause on Benson.
All blonde. That's Gretchen Krause, the head housekeeper.
I didn't stop to get her name.
Let's visit the governor's mansion in the world of the hit sitcom Benson. The show was a spin-off from the controversial series Soap and followed the character of Benson Dubois, a sharp-witted butler who ran the household for a goofy, well-meaning governor. Benson was the master of the witty comeback, but he met his match in the form of the mansion's head of household, a stern German woman named Gretchen Krause. Fräulein Krause, as she insisted on being called, was a masterpiece of weirdness. Played by actress Inga Swenson, she was strict, demanding, and had a German accent so thick you could cut it with a knife. She ran the governor's mansion with an iron fist and clashed with Benson from the very first episode. Their relationship was the heart of the show's comedy. They spent every episode trading creative, hilarious insults with each other. Benson would make fun of her cooking or her stern personality, and she would fire back with insults about his height or his intelligence, often calling him little man. What made her so weird was this constant, almost gleeful state of anger. She was always grumpy, always complaining, and always ready for a verbal fight with Benson. Despite their constant battles, there was an undercurrent of respect and even affection between them. She was a truly unique and bizarre character who stole every scene she was in. While Benson is remembered, his German nemesis is a forgotten gem of sitcom weirdness. A grumpy German housekeeper is memorable. But what about a sweet old grandma who only spoke a language almost no one understood? Our next character's weirdness was all in what she said. 15. Grandma Nussbaum on Gimme a Break.
Here, let me help you.
Oh, Mildred, I love that perfume. It's turning me on.
In the 1980s, the sitcom Gimme a Break was a popular show about a housekeeper named Nell Carter who helps a widowed police chief raise his 3 daughters. The show was full of heart and laughs, and it had a fantastic supporting cast. One of the most unique and forgotten characters was the girl's great-grandmother, Grandma Nussbaum. Grandma Nussbaum was the mother of the girl's late mother. She was a sweet, tiny, old-world Jewish grandmother played by actress Elvia Allman. And here's what made her so strange. She almost exclusively spoke Yiddish, a language that none of the other characters, or most of the audience, could understand. This led to some very funny and weird situations where she would deliver a long, passionate speech in Yiddish, and the other characters would just have to guess what she was talking about. The weirdest part of her character, though, was her relationship with her late husband, Grandpa Nussbaum. She would frequently talk to his framed photograph as if he were still alive, having full conversations in Yiddish with the picture. It was both sweet and incredibly bizarre. She was a recurring character for several seasons, but because her main gimmick was speaking a language no one understood, she has become a very obscure and forgotten part of 80s sitcom history. A grandma talking to a picture is one thing, but what about a dog whose thoughts you could actually hear? Our next character was a four-legged member of the family with a whole lot to say. 16. Skippy Handelman on Family Ties.
Mom, I made a pact with myself never to speak to you again. But I've given myself permission to suspend it.
Let's head to the Keaton household, home of the beloved 80s sitcom Family Ties. The show was famous for its smart writing and the breakout stardom of Michael J. Fox as the conservative young Republican, Alex P. Keaton. While Alex was the star, the show had a great cast of supporting characters. And one of the weirdest and most persistent was the family's nerdy next-door neighbor, Skippy Handelman. Skippy, played by Mark Price, was the definition of a lovable loser. He wore big glasses, had awkward hair, and was completely and totally obsessed with the Keatons' oldest daughter, Mallory. His entire existence on the show revolved around his hopeless crush on her. He would pop over at the most random times, always trying to win her affection with goofy poems or awkward compliments. Mallory, of course, wanted nothing to do with him. What made Skippy so weird was his sheer, unrelenting persistence. No matter how many times Mallory turned him down or made it clear she was not interested, Skippy never gave up. He was a permanent fixture, always lurking in the background, just waiting for his chance to talk to Mallory. He was the classic nerdy neighbor trope turned up to 11. While the Keaton family is iconic, their strange, Mallory-obsessed neighbor has largely been forgotten, a relic of 80s sitcom quirkiness. A persistent nerdy neighbor is a classic trope. But our next weird character was not a person at all. In fact, he was the family pet, and we could hear every single one of his thoughts. 17. Dreyfus the dog on Empty Nest.
Dreyfie, did she hurt your feelings, honey? Oh, I'm sorry.
She hurt my feelings, too.
In the late 80s and early 90s, Empty Nest was a popular sitcom and a spin-off of The Golden Girls. It was about a widowed pediatrician, Dr. Harry Weston, whose 2 adult daughters moved back home. The show was a pretty standard family comedy, except for one very, very weird element. The Weston family had a huge, lovable dog named Dreyfus, and the audience could hear his thoughts. That's right. Dreyfus, a big St. Bernard mix, would have internal monologues that we, the viewers, could hear, but the human characters could not. His thoughts were spoken in a deep, deadpan human voice, provided by actor Bear the dog, and voiced by Park Overall. He would make sarcastic comments about the family's problems, complain about his dog food, or express his love for his owner, Harry. It was a bizarre creative choice that made the show stand out. Adding a talking, or in this case, a thinking animal to a sitcom is always a strange move. It turned a realistic family sitcom into something a little bit surreal. While the show was a hit and ran for 7 seasons, the character of Dreyfus and his inner thoughts are a part of the show that many people have completely forgotten. He remains one of the weirdest and most unexpected talking animals in sitcom history.